I had just finished a late meeting at the firm, my tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, and a half-empty glass of bourbon resting beside me. The weight of the day pressed against my shoulders, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the phone call that would flip my entire world upside down. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a name I once associated with love, warmth, and home, Madeline. I answered, my voice tired but still laced with the same patience I had practiced over the past few months. Hey, Mads. Everything okay? What greeted me wasn't the concerned voice of a wife who missed her husband. It wasn't an apology, an explanation, or even a lie dressed as an excuse. It was laughter. Carefree, unrestrained, dripping with something I couldn't quite place yet. Oh, Alex, she purred, her voice a mixture of amusement and arrogance. You should really check your credit statement. I figured it was time I treated myself, and someone else. I straightened in my chair, the blood in my veins cooling to ice. What the hell are you talking about? I asked, though I already had an idea. Oh, don't be so dramatic, she chided playfully, like I was a child whining about sharing his toys. You always said I deserved the best, right? Well, I decided to take your advice. The Maldives is lovely this time of year. The Maldives. She took my platinum card, the one I had worked my ass off to afford, and used it to fly herself and her boyfriend to one of the most luxurious destinations in the world. With my money. And now, she was laughing about it. You think this is funny? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Oh, Alex, she sighed dramatically. Lighten up. It's just money. You'll make more. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about love, betrayal, or even selfishness. Madeline didn't just cheat, she wanted to humiliate me. She wanted to break me. She thought I'd be devastated, that I'd cry, beg, or lose control. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, a slow, humorless smile stretching across my face. Enjoy your vacation, Madeline. And then I hung up. Because while she was laughing now, she had no idea what was coming. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone like it might suddenly confess how the woman I married turned into someone I barely recognized. But no amount of staring would change what had happened. Madeline had stolen from me. She'd taken my platinum card, flown to the Maldives with her boyfriend, and then called me just to rub it in. That wasn't impulsive. That wasn't a moment of weakness. That was malicious. But while she was sipping cocktails on white sand beaches, thinking she had played me for a fool, she had no idea that I had already started playing a much bigger game. I cracked my knuckles, took a slow sip of bourbon, and then grabbed my laptop. If she wanted to play dirty, she had forgotten one simple fact. I don't lose. The first thing I did was call my bank. This is Alexander Cole. I need to report a fraudulent transaction. The customer service rep hesitated. Sir, I see multiple high-value charges made to an international resort. Could you confirm? Not mine, I cut in. Cancel the card immediately and begin a chargeback. Also, I'd like to freeze all my personal and joint accounts under the names Alexander and Madeline Cole. The rep hesitated again. Sir, are you certain? That will lock access to any shared. Do it. Now. I heard the soft clicking of keys, followed by a polite. Understood. Your accounts have been temporarily frozen pending verification. Is there anything else I can assist you with? Yes, I said, my voice smooth as ice. Send an automated fraud alert to the resort. Inform them that the guest using my card is engaging in unauthorized transactions. Make sure they know they are holding someone who is committing financial fraud. The rep sucked in a breath. Sir, that will likely cause. That's the point. As soon as I hung up, I leaned back, picturing Madeline and her little boyfriend waking up in their luxury suite only to find that her precious platinum card had been declined. The moment they tried to check out, the resort would treat them like the criminals they were. I wanted her to feel the humiliation. I wanted her to realize she wasn't untouchable. But I wasn't done yet. Madeline had always been reckless with money, but what she didn't know was that I knew everything. Every secret savings account. Every. Just in case. Stash she thought I didn't notice. I logged into our shared portfolio and navigated to her private investment account, the one she had so carefully curated under my name to avoid tax issues. A few quick transfers later, and poof, the balance was zero. I smirked. Let's see how long her boyfriend sticks around when her sugar mama status vanishes overnight. But this wasn't just about taking away her play money. No, this was about making sure she had nothing to come back to. Which led me to the final piece of my masterpiece. I reached for my phone and dialed my lawyer. Alex, Grant answered, his tone curious. You don't usually call after business hours. What's up? File the divorce papers, I said coolly. Today. There was a pause, then a low whistle. Damn. That bad? Worse, I replied. Make sure the paperwork is airtight. I don't want her walking away with a single cent. Grant exhaled. You sure you want to move this fast? Might be worth. No, I interrupted. I don't want to wait. I want her out of my life before she even sets foot back in the country. Understood, he said. I'll have everything filed by morning. She'll be served by the time she lands. I hung up, exhaling slowly. Madeline had thought she could rob me blind, cheat on me, and mock me in the process. But when she got back, she'd find herself penniless, homeless, and single. And I would be there, watching her world collapse, wearing the same slow, cold smile that had formed the moment she first laughed at me. I slept well that night, better than I had in months. There's a unique kind of satisfaction that comes from knowing you've just set a trap so perfectly that all you have to do is wait for the inevitable snap. Madeline had spent years thinking she was untouchable, believing I would always be the safety net beneath her reckless decisions. She was about to learn otherwise. By morning, my plan was already in motion. My bank had confirmed the chargebacks, my lawyer had finalized the divorce paperwork, and Madeline's accounts were completely drained. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted to watch the moment she realized the gravity of what she had done. And as if the universe wanted to reward my patience, my phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. Madeline's burner phone, most likely. Incoming call, Madeline. I smirked as I answered. Alex! What the hell did you do? Gone was the laughter, the smugness, the condescending tone. In its place was raw, desperate panic. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. Madeline, I greeted, my voice calm. Something wrong? Don't play games with me, Alex, she screeched. The resort just locked me and Jason out of our room. They're claiming fraud on the card. I had to use my personal savings to pay for last night, but guess what? That's gone too. I let out a small hum, as if contemplating. That's odd. Are you sure you didn't just overspend? You do have a history of burning through cash without thinking. Don't patronize me, Alex, she snapped. I checked my accounts, they're empty. And the resort manager told me that you personally reported the transactions as fraudulent. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I chuckled. Oh, Madeline. You don't know humiliation yet. But you will. Silence. I could practically hear her trying to process what was happening, trying to regain some kind of upper hand. But she couldn't. Alex. Her tone shifted, softening into something almost apologetic. Almost. Baby, don't. I cut in, my voice sharp. You lost the right to call me that when you decided to use my money to fund a romantic getaway with your boyfriend. She let out a shaky breath. Okay. I get it. You're pissed. But we can fix this. Just unlock my accounts and we'll talk when I get back. I laughed outright. Oh, no. There's no we anymore, Madeline. In fact, by the time you land, you won't even have a husband. What? Check your email. There was a pause, then the faint rustling of movement. I imagined her scrambling to open her phone, her perfect little vacation spiraling into a nightmare. A minute later she gasped. Divorce papers? You already filed? Of course I did, I said smoothly. Unlike you, I don't waste time when I make a decision. She was breathing heavily now, panic truly setting in. Alex, please. Can't we just… No. But… No, Madeline. My voice dropped to something cold. You made your bed. Now lie in it. With Jason. If he still wants you, that is. Silence. It lasted longer this time, but I didn't hang up. No, I wanted to savor this. Finally, she spoke again. How did you even know? I grinned. You told me yourself. And then, for the first time, I hung up on her. I knew Madeline. She wasn't stupid, she was entitled and reckless, but she knew how to manipulate people. If she was calling me, that meant she had already exhausted every other option. Jason must have panicked the second the money dried up. He probably told her this was her problem to fix, leaving her stranded in a foreign country with no cash, no credit, and no way out. And I was about to make sure she had no safety net either. With a few taps on my phone, I pulled up my last task for the morning. Notifying her parents. Madeline's mother, Diane, had never particularly liked me, but she liked appearances. She was one of those women who prided herself on having a perfect daughter, a perfect family, and a perfect marriage. She would lose her mind if she found out what Madeline had done. So I called. Alexander? Diane's voice was crisp, confused. Diane, I said politely. I just wanted to give you a heads up. You might be getting a call from Madeline soon. She's having a difficult time in the Maldives. The Maldives? She told me she was at a work conference. I almost laughed. Even now, Madeline was still lying. Well, not exactly, I corrected. She's actually there with another man. And she used my credit card to fund the entire trip. Dead silence. Then, she did what? I smiled. Hook, line, and sinker. She might call asking for money. I continued casually. Just thought you should know before you decide whether or not to help her. Diane exhaled sharply, clearly trying to process the absolute disgrace her daughter had just become. I appreciate the warning, Alexander. I'll handle this. And with that, I ended the call. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Madeline had always been good at spinning a sob story, but this time, she wouldn't have the chance. No money. No home. No husband. No way out. I pictured her sitting in that overpriced resort lobby, Jason nowhere in sight, her phone in hand as rejection after rejection poured in. And I smiled. Because this was just the beginning. I spent the rest of my morning watching the pieces fall into place, like a grand symphony reaching its crescendo. By now, Madeline was trapped. Her credit was destroyed. Her savings? Gone. Jason had undoubtedly abandoned her the second he realized she was no longer his all-expenses-paid sugar mama. And if I knew Diane, and I did, she would not be sending her daughter a single penny after hearing what she'd done. That meant Madeline had no way out. Now, all I had to do was wait for the final, desperate plea. It came at 1:43 p.m. Madeline's name flashed across my screen, and I took my time before answering. Alex, she breathed, her voice raw. Panicked. Defeated. Perfect. Madeline, I greeted, sipping my coffee. How's your little vacation going? Alex, please, she whispered. I need your help. I closed my eyes, savoring it. Help? I echoed, as if the idea had just occurred to me. Oh, that's funny. Because the last time we spoke, you were calling to gloat about using my money to take another man on a tropical getaway. She let out a shaky breath. God, Alex, I was stupid. I wasn't thinking. I just need enough to book a flight home. There it was. The plea. The desperation. She had nothing left. No money. No dignity. No way out of the mess she had created. And she thought I was going to help her. I smiled. So let me get this straight, I said, my tone mockingly patient. You want me to send you money, so you can fly home to sign the divorce papers? She winced. I could hear it. Alex. No. I cut in smoothly. You made your bed, Madeline. And now? You get to lie in it. She sobbed. Not crocodile tears, not fake sniffles, real, raw sobbing. I have no one else. She choked out. Jason left me the second my card got declined, my mother won't take my calls, and the resort is kicking me out. I have nowhere to go, Alex. Please. I let her cry. I let her beg. And then, when I had fully enjoyed the moment, I exhaled slowly and said, Not my problem. And hung up. I knew Madeline wouldn't give up that easily. So, I took one final step to ensure she couldn't weasel her way out of this. I picked up my phone and made one last call. Hello? Hi, yes. This is Alexander Cole. I believe you're currently hosting a guest under my credit account, Madeline Cole? There was a pause, then the polite yet professionally concerned voice of the resort manager. Yes, sir. Is there a problem? There is, actually, I said smoothly. She's been using my account without authorization. She is not my guest, and I would like to formally report her for credit fraud. The manager sucked in a breath. Oh, I see. That is very serious, Mr. Cole. It is, I agreed. And as the rightful account holder, I would like to request that her name be flagged in your system, along with every luxury resort in your network. She should never be allowed to book another stay again. The manager was silent for a moment, but when he spoke again, his voice was clipped and professional. Understood, Mr. Cole. I will ensure she is blacklisted from all future reservations. And what would you like us to do with her now? I smiled. That's entirely up to you. I never picked up Madeline's next calls. Or the ones after that. I let her rot in the mess she had made, alone, with nowhere to turn. Eventually, I heard from Diane that Madeline had managed to book a flight back, after pawning every piece of jewelry she had brought. She had to downgrade to a middle seat in economy, surrounded by crying babies and people who couldn't care less about her designer handbag or manicured nails. And when she finally landed, she was served divorce papers at the gate. Welcome home, Madeline. Hope you enjoyed your trip. I sat in my office, sipping a glass of bourbon as I stared out the window. The city skyline stretched before me, gleaming under the afternoon sun. Somewhere out there, Madeline was learning what it felt like to lose. My phone vibrated. A text. Grant, lawyer, she's been served. Landed this morning. The look on her face. Priceless. I chuckled. I almost wished I had been there to see it in person. Madeline, broke and exhausted, stepping off a cramped economy flight, only to be handed the final nail in her coffin. Divorce papers. I could picture it. The way her face must have twisted with shock, anger, and fear. She had spent the past several years thinking she could get away with anything. And now? Now, she was about to experience true consequences. I knew it wouldn't take long for Madeline to show up. And I was right. At 6:15 p.m., just as the sun began to dip below the skyline, I heard pounding at my front door. I didn't move immediately. I let her knock. Again. And again. Then came the shouting. Alex! Open the goddamn door! I took another slow sip of bourbon, smirking to myself. Desperation suited her. Finally I stood, rolling back my sleeves as I made my way to the door. I opened it slowly, taking my time. And there she was. Madeline Cole. Or rather, what was left of her. She looked wrecked. Her normally perfect blonde hair was a mess. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red and swollen from crying. And the designer handbag she once carried like a trophy? Gone. Pawned, I assumed. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Well? Look what the tide dragged in. She flinched. But then, just as quickly, she snapped. You bastard! She hissed, shoving past me into the house. You ruined my life! I let out a low laugh. No, Madeline. You ruined your own life. I just made sure you couldn't weasel out of the consequences. She spun around, fury in her eyes. You stole all my money! You left me stranded! Correction, I said coolly. I took back what was mine. You wouldn't have had that money in the first place if it weren't for me. As for leaving you stranded, you did that all on your own. Her hands trembled. I could tell she wanted to scream, to lash out, but she knew she had nothing to fight with. She had lost. Alex, she tried again, her voice softer now. We don't have to do this. I messed up, okay? But you and me, we had something real once, didn't we? There it was. The final play. When manipulation through rage didn't work, she tried the soft approach. But I wasn't buying it. Once, maybe, I admitted. But I see you for who you really are now, Madeline. And I have no interest in giving you a second chance. Her face crumbled. But I have nothing, she whispered. I tilted my head. Not my problem. Tears pooled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No guilt. Just satisfaction. She deserved this. What am I supposed to do? She asked, voice shaking. I exhaled slowly, taking another sip of bourbon before meeting her gaze. Figure it out. And with that, I walked to the door, holding it open. Her breath hitched. You're really kicking me out? Yes, I said simply. She stared at me, searching for any weakness. Any sign that I might cave. But I didn't. And finally, she realized it. Her shoulders slumped, and she walked to the door, broken, defeated, powerless. As she stepped out onto the porch, she turned back one last time. I hate you, she spat. I smirked. Join the club. And then I shut the door in her face. She called me 3 more times that night. I didn't answer. She sent 16 texts. I didn't respond. She even tried reaching out to some of our old mutual friends, crying about how I had abandoned her. It didn't work. She was done. By the end of the week, she had left the city entirely, slinking back to whatever relatives still had enough pity left to take her in. And me? I moved on. I went back to my life, my work, my success, without the weight of her dead weight dragging me down. Madeline had taken everything from me once. But in the end, I took back more. And I never looked back. It was over. Madeline was gone. Her name still lingered in my voicemail inbox, in unread texts, in the occasional whispers from acquaintances who still hadn't grasped the full extent of her downfall. But to me, she was nothing more than a chapter 1 had finally closed. I thought I'd feel empty. I didn't. In fact, I felt free. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up next to a ticking time bomb of entitlement and manipulation. I wasn't worried about the next lie, the next scheme, the next betrayal hiding behind a carefully crafted smile. I was done with all of it. And now? It was time to rebuild. My first order of business was cleansing my life of every trace of her. I started with the house. Every item she had ever picked out, from the expensive artwork she insisted we needed to the designer furniture she had barely used, was packed up and sent straight to donation. The bed? Gone. The couch she loved? Replaced. The wine glasses she had carefully curated? Shattered. By the end of the weekend, my house finally felt like mine again. Then I moved on to the financial cleanup. I reviewed every joint investment, every shared asset, every little thing she had once clawed her way into, and made sure her name was scrubbed clean from my accounts. Her biggest mistake had been letting me handle the paperwork when we first combined our assets. She thought it meant I trusted her. What it really meant was that I controlled everything. By the time I was done, Madeline didn't have a single claim to my wealth. No alimony. No hidden nest eggs. No way back in. She had bled me dry for years, thinking I was too blind to see it. And now? She was the one left begging for scraps. 3 weeks after Madeline disappeared, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. I considered ignoring it, until I saw the area code. Miami. I smirked and answered. Who is this? I asked lazily. A beat of silence. Then, you know damn well who this is. Ah, Jason. I had almost forgotten about him. Jason, I greeted smoothly. Long time no see. How's the Maldives? Cut the crap, Alex, he snapped. You screwed me over. I let out a slow chuckle. Oh, Jason. No. She screwed you over. I just made sure you both got what you deserved. His breathing was heavy, angry. She told me you froze her accounts, he growled. Left her stranded, broke. You did that just to punish her? Correct. And what about me? He demanded. What the hell did I do to you? Oh, don't play dumb, Jason. I sighed. You knew she was married. You knew she was using my money to fund your little affair. And you still let her do it. That makes you just as guilty. Silence. I could hear him grinding his teeth. You don't understand, he muttered. She told me you were a piece of shit. That you didn't love her. That you controlled her. I laughed outright. And you believed her? I asked, amused. He didn't respond. Because he knew. He knew he had been played. Just like I had. The difference? I got out. Jason? He was still standing in the ruins. You're an asshole, he muttered. So are you, I shot back. But at least I'm a rich asshole. And then, just because I could, I hung up on him. As the weeks passed, my life finally returned to normal. My business flourished. My friendships strengthened, especially with the ones who had warned me about Madeline from the start. And me? I was doing better than ever. I started traveling again, picking up new hobbies, reconnecting with the things I had let slip away during my marriage. And for the first time in years, I was truly happy. But Madeline? She wasn't. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine. How she burned every bridge trying to get back on her feet. How her friends dropped her one by one once they realized she had nothing left to offer. How she bounced between family members, begging for a place to stay. And the best part? She tried dating again. But without the money, the luxury, the status? She was just another woman with a bad reputation and no prospects. I never reached out. I never checked in. I let her drown in the wreckage of her own making. Because in the end, the worst punishment for Madeline was being Madeline. Forever. Months passed. Madeline was nothing more than a fading stain on my past, a mistake I had erased, a parasite I had removed. I had rebuilt my life, brick by brick, ensuring that every trace of her had been wiped clean. But one thing I had learned about cockroaches? They always find a way back. And sure enough, just when I thought I'd seen the last of her, she returned, pathetic, desperate, and more dangerous than before. It started with an email. At first, I didn't recognize the sender. The address was new, an anonymous Gmail account with a generic name. But the subject line? Alex, please. I almost deleted it without opening it. But then, curiosity won. Alex, I know you hate me. You have every right to. I deserve it. But please, I need your help. I have nowhere else to turn. I know I was selfish. I know I was a terrible wife. I know I ruined everything. But I swear I've changed. I've lost everything, Alex. Everything. I don't expect you to take me back. I need a second chance. Not as your wife, not as your partner. Just as a person trying to survive. Please. Can we talk? Just once? Madeline. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, slowly, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. There it was. The final play. Madeline had spent her entire life using people. Manipulating, scheming, extracting everything she could until there was nothing left. Now, for the first time, she had no cards left to play. And she knew it. I ignored her email for 3 days. Then, just out of curiosity, I sent a single reply. One meeting. That's it. She responded in less than a minute. Thank you, Alex. You won't regret it. I already did. But I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this for me. To see for myself just how far she had fallen. We met at a small coffee shop, a far cry from the high-end restaurants she once demanded. She was already there when I arrived. And when I saw her, I almost didn't recognize her. Madeline had always been immaculate. Expensive outfits. Perfect hair. A walking advertisement for luxury. But now, she looked average. She wasn't starving, but she had clearly downsized. Cheap clothes, minimal makeup, a nervous energy that had never been there before. And for the first time in years, she looked at me with no arrogance, no entitlement. Just fear, Alex. She breathed, giving me a tentative smile. Thank you for meeting me. I sat down. Didn't smile. Didn't greet her. Just folded my hands on the table and said, Talk. She swallowed hard. I messed up. She started, her voice shaky. You were right. About everything. Jason left me. My family won't speak to me. My friends are gone. I have nothing. I said nothing. Let her squirm. I just need a job. She whispered. A real one. And I know I don't deserve your help, but I have experience in business. I could work for you. I could prove I've changed. I let her words hang in the air for a moment. Then I laughed. A low, dark chuckle. You? I asked, tilting my head. Work for me? She flinched. I mean, yes, I know, it sounds crazy. But I'm serious, Alex. I'll start anywhere. Entry level. I'll prove I'm different. No. Her eyes widened. What? No. I repeated, leaning forward. You don't deserve a second chance, Madeline. You don't get to walk into my life again just because you finally hit rock bottom. Tears welled in her eyes. Alex, please. No. Her breathing hitched. She looked around, as if expecting someone to step in and save her. But no one did. Because there was no one left. For the first time in her life, she was truly, completely alone. And I wanted her to feel every second of it. You burned every bridge. I told her, my voice calm. You made your choices. Now live with them. Her lips trembled. So that's it? She whispered. You're really just going to let me suffer? I stared at her for a long moment. Then I leaned back and took a slow sip of coffee before saying, Madeline, if I had the choice between saving you and watching you drown, I set my cup down. I'd grab a chair and enjoy the show. Her breath caught. I stood, grabbing my coat. Goodbye, Madeline. And then, without one last glance, I walked out the door. And never looked back. That was the last time I ever saw Madeline. No final text messages. No desperate calls in the middle of the night. No last-ditch efforts to claw her way back into my life. She was just gone. And that should have been the end of it. But when someone spends their whole life scheming, manipulating, and using people, they don't just disappear quietly. Madeline's downfall was about to get a lot worse. And this time? I wouldn't even have to lift a finger. It started with a phone call from Grant. I was halfway through my morning routine when my lawyer's name flashed on my screen. Morning, Grant. Something wrong? I asked, taking a sip of coffee. Alex, he said slowly. Have you checked the news? I frowned. No. Why? You're going to want to. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I reached for my tablet, opened a news site. And there it was. Socialite Madeline Cole arrested. Fraud allegations surface after lavish lifestyle crumbles. I blinked. Then, slowly, I read the article. Turns out, Madeline hadn't just used me. She had used everyone. After I cut her off, she had tried to latch on to other men, spinning sob stories, trying to weasel her way into another life of luxury. It didn't work. No one was stupid enough to bankroll a has-been gold digger with a reputation for blowing through money. So, Madeline got desperate. And desperation makes people reckless. She had maxed out credit cards under fake names. She had forged financial documents to apply for personal loans she had no way of repaying. She had conned a few high society acquaintances into investing in fake business ventures, then took their money and vanished. And eventually, the law caught up. She had been arrested in Miami, trying to flee to Mexico after her latest scam unraveled. Now, she was facing years in prison. And I just sat there, sipping my coffee, smiling. I knew she would try. I knew the second they let her make a phone call, she would dial the one number she hoped still held some mercy for her. Mine. And sure enough, my phone buzzed with an unknown caller ID. I let it ring. Let it ring again. Then, slowly, I answered. Alex. Her voice was wrecked. Shaky. Panicked. Terrified. You have to help me, she whispered. Please. Please, Alex, you have to. I don't have to do anything, Madeline, I said smoothly. She sucked in a breath. Alex, I know I don't deserve it. But this is too much. I can't. You can't handle it? I cut in, voice laced with mock concern. You can't handle the thought of prison? Of consequences? Of spending years in a place where no one gives a damn about your designer heels or your perfect hair? She sobbed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She choked out. I was just trying to survive. No, Madeline, I said, my tone turning ice cold. You were trying to cheat your way out of the mess you made. Just like you always have. She was quiet. Because she knew I was right. Please, she whispered. If you ever loved me, if you ever cared at all, please, just help me this once. I let out a low hum. That's the thing, Madeline, I mused. I did love you. Once. But you killed that love the second you used me. And now? I leaned back, enjoying the moment. Now I just don't care. She let out a broken sob. So you're really going to let me rot in here? She whispered. I grinned. Madeline, I'm not letting you do anything. You put yourself there. I'm just sitting back, and watching you drown. And then? I hung up. For the last time. Madeline was sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud and financial crimes. The same woman who once lived off my wealth, laughed in my face, and thought she was untouchable? Now she was just another inmate in an orange jumpsuit. And me? I moved on. I thrived. I lived my life without the dead weight of a woman who had tried to destroy me. And the best part? She had done it all to herself. Game over, Madeline. I wouldn't doubt I woke up that morning with the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waking up to chaos. No fights. No manipulation. No betrayal lurking behind a forced smile. Madeline was gone. Not just from my life, but from society itself. Locked away behind prison walls, stripped of every luxury she once worshipped, reduced to nothing. And me? I was thriving. The world outside my penthouse was bright, alive, full of opportunity. I had spent so much of my life carrying dead weight, trapped in a marriage where I was nothing more than a walking bank account. But now, I was free. And I intended to enjoy every second of it. First stop? Cancun. I had postponed $1 million business deal while dealing with the Madeline situation, and now? It was time to get back to work. Only this time? I was bringing someone with me. I had met Olivia a few months back, right after cutting Madeline from my life. She was smart. She was sharp. And most importantly, she wasn't like Madeline. No entitled arrogance. No fake, calculated charm. No hidden agenda. She had her own money. Her own career. Her own damn life. And she wanted me for me. So when I told her I was heading to Cancun, she didn't ask to come. She didn't hint or scheme or play games. She just smiled and said, "Have a great trip." And that's when I knew. I wanted her there. So I booked 2 tickets. First class. No stolen credit cards. No lies. No betrayal waiting on the other side. Just me and her, heading toward a future that was finally mine to control. The flight was smooth, the hotel flawless, and the business deal? A complete success. But there was one last piece of unfinished business lingering in the back of my mind. I had left Madeline to rot in prison, but there was still one connection to my past that needed to be severed for good. Our old penthouse. I still owned it. Legally, it was mine. But that place? It reeked of her. So I made a call. To my realtor. List it. Sir, are you sure? It's... List it, I repeated. I don't care about the price. Just get it sold. And just like that, the last tie to Madeline Cole was severed. Olivia and I spent the rest of the week in Cancun, soaking in everything I had missed while being chained to a toxic marriage. We laughed. We drank. We lived. And for the first time in a long time, I realized something. Madeline hadn't just taken my money. She had taken years of my life. And now? It was time to start taking them back. There's something about true freedom that changes a man. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't bracing for the next betrayal. I wasn't waking up wondering if the woman beside me was plotting against me. I had escaped. And as I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse, overlooking the ocean, I finally felt it. Peace. Madeline was gone. Her name was nothing more than a cautionary tale I told myself when I needed a reminder of how far I'd come. But there was still one loose end. One final thing I needed to do before I could close the book forever. I never expected to hear from her again. But fate has a funny way of testing your resolve. It came in the form of a letter, delivered to my office, stamped with the return address of a Florida correctional facility. The handwriting? Hers. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I let it sit on my desk for 2 days, untouched. A part of me considered tossing it in the shredder. Another part of me was morbidly curious. On the 3rd day, I finally read it. Alex, I know you have no reason to listen to me. But please, just read this. I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did to you. And I'm sorry. I'm not asking for help. I know I don't deserve it. But when I get out of here, I just hope I can be someone better than who I used to be. I don't know if that means anything to you. But it's the truth. Madeline. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then, I folded it neatly and tossed it into the trash. Some men would have wanted revenge. Some men would have spent the rest of their lives bitter, angry, carrying the weight of betrayal like a second skin. But me? I had won. Not because Madeline was in prison. Not because she had lost everything. But because she didn't matter anymore. I had everything I needed. A successful career. A life without lies. And a future that was mine to shape. So as I watched the sun set over the ocean, Olivia's laughter floating in from the other room, I let out a slow breath. And closed the book on Madeline Cole. Forever.